Bob. I'm gonna let him in.
Yeah.
He
Bob,
just made
thank
it.
you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday book celebration. Tonight, my dear friend Pat is here, and y'all are in for a treat because not only do you get to hear some of her fine poetry, you also get to hear something that you may not know she does, personal essay. This is a mixed genre book. Because I Did Not Drown, out by Main Street Rag. I've got a link in there to Pat's website. If you did want a signed copy, reach out to her to get one, or you can always click on the link for Main Street Rag. Welcome. My name's Malika Albrecht. I'm the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild. And just a reminder, we will open to submissions in August. I'm so behind on reading submissions, but I will get to them. So send us any rejects that you have. Pat Riviere-Seel is the author of 4
Hello.
poetry collections, including The Serial Killer's Daughter. Just a reminder, I'm going to mute. Sometimes, yeah, there we go. When Pat's reading, I'll just remind people to mute because it'll feed back. The Serial Killer's Daughter is amazing. If you've never read it, you really need to grab it. It was the winner of the Rono Chowan Award, and it was made into a play, which I got to see performed. It was just impressive. She taught for 15 years in University of Asheville's Great Smokies writing program and served 2 years as a North Carolina Poetry Society Gilbert Chapel Distinguished Poet for the state's Western region. I love this one. She once served as poet in residence in the North Carolina Zoo. That was such a cool program. Her poems have been widely published in numerous literary journals and anthologies. Before she earned her MFA from Queen's University in Charlotte, she worked as a newspaper journalist, publicist, editor, and lobbyist. And you can learn more. Somebody put something funny. Thank you, Cindy. That's hilarious. Do rejects include men? They're just your poems that get rejected. I have bad taste of my own. I don't need to borrow anybody's. Pat, we are coming to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I am excited. I got to read this book ahead of time, and I can tell you we're in for a treat tonight. It doesn't get much better than this. So glad to see you.
Thank you, Malika. It's great to see you. Malika wrote a wonderful blurb for my book, which Scott Douglas, in his infinite wisdom, cut from the back. I'm afraid the poet laureate shoved you out, Malika. I'm sorry about that. But this was a book that I really was not going to publish. I decided last year I was going to just toss these little essays aside because I'd started writing them when I was working on a memoir which is now about 3 feet tall in drafts. And that's just the drafts that I printed out. But then Scott Douglas called, and since he had published 3 of my previous poetry books, when he said, you know, he's moving, he and Jill are moving to Pennsylvania, and if I had anything I wanted him to look at that I might want to publish, now was the time to send it. So I asked him if he would consider a book that's kind of a mixed genre of prose and poems. And Scott, in his warm, cuddly way, said, send it, I'll look at it. So I did. And I got Robin Green, who was here, to look at it too. And she said, yes, it's probably worth publishing. So here we go. This is the book that I finally decided to put out there. I'm going to start tonight and read the preface, and then I'm going to read a couple of short essays followed by their poems, and hopefully these are good essays to read on today, which is not one of the better days in our country. But tomorrow's the 4th of July, and we need to celebrate. This is the preface, and it comes with an epigram from Emily Dickinson. Let me tell you a story in prose and poetry. It's unlike any you've ever heard. It's familiar as your own face in the mirror. It's my story. I come from a long line of storytellers, an ordinary family of people who first hug you, tell you a story, and then ask for yours. The day of Daddy's funeral, his younger brother, the only one of 4 still living, sat down in Daddy's recliner in the den of what had suddenly become my house and began telling stories, an act as natural as the grief we all shared. I don't remember any of his stories, but I remember the sound of his voice, the cadence of his speech, and the way I sat with cousins and listened while the rest of the family gathered in the kitchen, choosing food to serve from the abundance of casseroles and cakes covering the counters. Food and stories, they nourish me. They help define me. I was born with the surname Riviere, which means river in French, in the middle of the 20th century under the sun sign Libra, the scales. I've always been a water child, drawn to the ocean, lakes, rivers, ponds, and mud puddles. If there was water, I was in it. In 1997, when I married Ed Seal, I hyphenated my name to honor him and our union. His surname means soul in German. I am indeed a river soul. My life has always been a balancing act, a lot like crossing a river by stepping on rocks, moving from one to the next without falling. The trick is to keep moving. Too often, I've tried to steady myself on one rock before moving to the next. I've found some balance, but more importantly, I've learned to swim by slipping and tumbling into the water. If I were to choose one word to describe my life, it would be resilience. I didn't drown. I found possibilities. I've led a privileged life. I was born with white skin to working class parents in a small southern town, much like small towns all over this country. I had the good fortune to be born into a loving extended family and to be spared severe trauma. Within my family, the most important things in life were family, faith, and community service. We were far from perfect, but we loved each other. From this vantage point, I know we did the best that we could. This world doesn't owe you a thing, Daddy frequently told me, but you have an obligation to leave this planet a better place than you found it. It was more than a philosophy for him. His commitment to serving his Methodist church, to serving the community through work with the Lions Club, and his commitment to other alcoholics through Alcoholics Anonymous put those words into action. My mother was a registered nurse whose profession so defined her life that when she died, Daddy and I buried her in her nurse's uniform. It's my hope that my writing in some way, small way, contributes to making this world a better place. These short dives into my life, the things that helped shape the person I have become, began as the COVID pandemic was ending. The pandemic changed me, and I began to wonder during that time how I had changed, what was important to me. These snapshots range from exploring relationships with family and friends to my complicated relationship with guns and my grief at watching the destruction of so much of the work I did destroyed. These pieces were written before Hurricane Helene tore through the mountains of western North Carolina in 2024 and forever changed the landscape, both geographically and emotionally. Even so, I believe that this work still offers healing in the aftermath of destruction and the dark and dangerous time we are living in this country. These are my stories. Now they are your stories. The poem that follows this is the one that where I took the title for this book, from the Almanac of Broken Things. I choose this earth that breaks my heart again and again. The woods for the way trees bend, fall, and return to dirt. I choose the sand dollar, the nautilus, that in brokenness find new creation. I choose the favorite doll that no longer cries, loved into silence, into rags. I choose the memory of a stranger's touch that lifted my face above water. Because I did not drown, I choose morning, the gauzy gray dawn that returns. I choose the once wild palomino, whose beauty can never be tamed. I choose light from long dead stars, that illuminates without heat. I choose March with its promise of spring, the warm days that tease, the blizzard that insulates and warms the bulbs, the seeds, all that lies beneath the surface, waiting. I'm going to continue. This next essay is one I need to hear today, particularly. This is The Power of Silence. It's an odd thing to want after living through a pandemic where many of us spent long stretches of time isolated from each other. But it's the silence I long for, silence I desire, silence I crave. These days, the world seems filled with too much inconsequential chatter, a barrage of information and misinformation that is not especially helpful, factual, or truthful. It's a world of constant noise, lives lived and angst expressed endlessly on social media. Even the crows complain loudly. Or maybe it is simply that during the pandemic, I once again grew accustomed to a deep, satisfying silence that nourishes my soul. Yes, I know the dangers of silence all too well. The failure to speak up about injustice, the failure to give voice to those who have been silenced, the failure to give voice to truth and facts, the failure to speak up to protect the natural world, to work for peace and support the vulnerable can be deadly. Paul Simon gave voice to those silences eloquently in his song, The Sounds of Silence. I know the silence of being shunned and the awful silence of waiting to hear the voice of someone dear. There are hard silences, like the silence after a fight with a loved one. There are soft silences, like the pause after words of love. There is the silence of snow falling, the silence of waking to a world transformed by a blanket of stillness. There is the silence of August humidity in the south, the air thick as split pea soup that absorbs all sound, the silence of wind blowing through a field of ripe wheat. My mother knew the power of silence. If you can't say something good about someone, don't say anything at all, she repeated until it became tattooed on my brain. A cliche, but nonetheless good advice. There is the powerful silence when sitting with someone who is hurting. No words are necessary or helpful. All that is needed is to be present, to be. Then there is the silence, like the spaces between words on a page, between lines of a poem, a place to pause, to absorb whatever is and whatever comes. Silence is a way for me to receive, to allow God, nature, the universe, spirits to enter. It is in this silence that I can hear what is too often muffled in the din of tires and asphalt and gravel. Bird song and train whistles, ocean waves crashing on the sand, and the cries of gulls. This is the silence I crave, the silence of invitation, permission to just be. When I moved to Yancey County in 1992, I began attending Quaker meeting on Sunday mornings. The Friends Meeting House was the closest formal place of worship, a 10-minute drive from my house. A drive into town was at least 25 minutes. I found that the hour of sitting in silence held a power I could not describe. It was the only time I shut up, sat still, and allowed the silence to speak. It was calming, it was invigorating, and it was as close to meditation as I had come, except for long runs of 10 miles or more. Years later, I was fortunate to join a group of women in centering prayer once a week. I looked forward to those 2 hours on Monday afternoon, gathering first with strangers who quickly became soul sisters. For years, we met faithfully every week. It was the only part of my week that I could count on not having to do anything except be and receive. I gave myself mind, body, and spirit to whatever arrived during those 2 hours. I always left more focused and with a peace that surpassed all understanding. Although I've continued the centering prayer and meditation practice, all too often I've allowed the busyness and the chatter of the world to keep me from the silence and the stillness that nourishes me. And the poem that follows that one is appropriately Silence. She stands in the kitchen beside a man cleaning brass over a porcelain sink, yellow latex gloves up to his elbows, cigarette burning in an ashtray. This house has been empty so long that the birds and cobwebs claim it. Ladybugs navigate window panes. A crow lands on a pine bough outside the window, swings a branch to eye level. Startled, the bird cries and flies away as suddenly as it appeared. The way she's wanted to live ever since she realized where she had arrived. A country without map or road signs, treacherous as a glaze of thin ice on a deep pond. His gloves cover the hands that hold her, his touch gentle, warm as the April sunlight spilling through the windows. What are we? She asks. He turns, as startled as the crow, bound by what they cannot say. In that silence, she knows that leaving is no longer an option. Oh, it's quiet in here. The last little essay that I'm going to read is Learning to Love. And this is a reminder I need today after what the house did. And this comes also with an epigraph from W.H. Auden from his poem September 1st, 1939. We must love one another or die. Auden's powerful poem addresses a time in history when another madman, Adolf Hitler, had invaded Czechoslovakia, the beginning of World War II. It's a poem I've turned to many times in my life, finding new connections, new ways of looking at the current world and all its splendor and horror. It is a poem I heard repeated often after September 11th, when terrorists destroyed the twin towers of the World Trade Center. As I watched and read about Putin's invasion of Ukraine on February 2022, my thoughts returned to January 6, 2021, when a group of insurrectionists attacked the U.S. Capitol, intent on overturning the lawful and fair 2020 election results. These homegrown terrorists who invaded the Capitol were encouraged and supported by the president who had lost the election, but remained intent on retaining power by any means necessary. It was a reminder that our democracy is fragile, as are all democracies. Now in 2025, our democracy faces even greater danger since the president who lost the election was reelected. He promptly pardoned all the insurrectionists who participated in the attack on the Capitol, vowing to extract revenge and punish his perceived enemies. The president is keeping those promises. How to love people who seem to me intent on destroying democracy. How to love the people who want to destroy everything I hold dear and sacred. These are not hypothetical questions for me, but I have no answers. Most days, the best I can do is follow Rilke's advice to love the questions themselves. Love, the word, the verb, the imperative. Love, not a romantic kind, but the deliberate, the conscious, the commandment. As Valentine's Day approached with the bloody history, expectations, and sentimental kissy face trappings, my thoughts turned to another kind of love, the difficult, the messy, the kind of love I need to learn and relearn every day. It's part acceptance, part living in the moment, part gratitude, and a lot of grace. It's what my last living aunt did as she spent her last days on this earth in hospice care. She slept a lot, spoke few words. One afternoon, she opened her eyes and looked around the room at all of us there and said, "I love you. I love you all." It's the active verb that creates a lasting marriage. A few years ago, I asked a good friend's husband how he had managed to stay married to the same woman for 50 years. We had fallen into step together behind a group that included his wife, my husband, another couple on the way to a restaurant. His wife, as usual, was engaging the group in an animated conversation, this time about their anniversary plans. He and I walked a block in comfortable silence before I asked the question. They had married young and had raised 4 children together, so I was curious. As a woman who has from time to time flirted with the idea of joining a convent just so I could live in quiet, contemplative solitude, the thought of living with another human being for 50 years is anathema. I wanted to know his secret. His answer was deceptively simple. Every morning when I wake up, I say to myself, I am going to love this woman. He made a conscious choice every day to love. As I've struggled to write about a 15-year or so snapshot of a significant time in my life, I've learned the necessity of loving the people I'm writing about. The most difficult one to love is that demanding, arrogant, insecure, and frightened young woman that I was then. She's not very likable, and I often cringe as I type out a truth about her. There are no heroes and no villains in this manuscript, but writing it is teaching me how to love. During the spring of 2024, when I attended a week-long intense writing retreat in New Mexico, I found a deeper love for that 28-year-old reporter and the 33-year-old attorney. They did the best they could, loved each other to the best of their ability, and with all their flaws, demons, and insecurities. They were committed to each other and to their work. They were passionate about the fight for justice, equality, and truth. But they were so very young, idealistic, yet realistic enough to know the dangers of the world and the time they were living. They wounded each other deeply, but they also showed each other what it was like to love and to be loved. Learning to love is a lot like writing poems. I write a lot of bad poems. They are messy. Some are worth molding into something that I could send out into the world, hoping for a connection with others. Occasionally, there is one that surpasses my expectations. I keep writing every day a conscious choice. I'm also learning to love the world we live in and all who inhabit it. For me, that's a lot like training for a marathon. Most days it's pure joy, but there are those days when it is simply a matter of putting in the time, the miles, pushing through, and knowing that achieving my goal of finishing the marathon will take everything I have. I certainly cannot claim to be an expert or even very good at loving this world and all it contains, but I try. I try to remember to say each day, today I am going to love this world. Not just the beauty, not just the parts and the people and the things I like, all of it, all. The poem that's paired with this one is one that was in Walter magazine in Raleigh. It was Jackie Shelton Green had asked me to submit a poem, and I thought, well, I don't usually write in form, but I thought I'd play with this one a little bit. How I want to love you. Let's keep overthinking, he says. Too late for that, I think, but do not say. Let's lie down in the dew-damp grass, become shadows stretched into dream. Let clouds cover doubt. Do you want to spend this moment thinking or holding hands skin to skin? Feel the heartbeat from the roots of ancient pines. 2 bodies, 1 soul. Taste the mystery of deep kisses, the world we know alive without thought. The world we know alive, without thought, 1 soul. Taste the mystery. Deep kisses from the roots of ancient pines. 2 bodies, hands, skin to skin. Feel the heartbeat. Spend this moment thinking or holding. Let clouds cover doubt. Do you want to become shadows stretched into dream? Let's lie down in the dew-damp grass. It's not too late for that, I think, but do not say. Let's not overthink, he says, keeping close.
Oh,
You can turn the sound down. I have one more poem if I have time, but I don't think I do.
you definitely do, but I
I
just
do.
had to say, Pat, oh my God, I'm being blown away because I knew these so intimately, but hearing you read them is a different experience. Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you. The poem I'm going to read is not in the book. It's a fairly new one. I say fairly new one. That's the last 9 months or so. It's titled Volunteer Training. It's a little more upbeat, I think, maybe. Volunteer training. At the disaster relief station, there's only one unbreakable rule. When someone starts talking, stop whatever you're doing and listen. Sounds simple enough. How many times have I told the same story? How many more do I need to tell it, recalling details I discover anew each telling? How often have I listened as someone else relives tales of fear, loss, the terror of sitting alone in a dark house, no water or lights, no way to reach beyond the walls they pray will hold and shelter them until the storm passes? How often have so many of us recounted the day Helene ravaged these mountains, winds that uprooted 100-year-old oaks, rain that rerouted rivers and creeks, flooded homes and businesses, swept away entire families? Listen, whenever anyone begins to talk, even if you've heard the story 100 times 100, listen, there's healing in the telling. And when the speaker stops talking, inside that silence, what do you offer them? Everything. Give them anything they want. We know what happens to things too tightly held.
Oh, holy smokes. I'm taking the spotlight off so you can see everybody. And people, you can unmute because I want you to be able to see their response happening.
I gotta
Uh,
click on it. I can't watch anybody while I'm reading, but so I'm
yeah,
looking
yeah.
trying to see everybody now.
I'm glad to see Hilda here too. People came in.
Oh, Hilda!
That's awesome.
Did Hilda show up?
Yep, she's right there.
See anybody? Why can't I
Y'all
see?
are welcome to unmute
Okay.
and ask questions. I just want to, Pat, like I said, I felt so, well versed in that entire book, but hearing you read it, and I don't know the timing of the day. I mean of
Oh,
today.
yeah.
This worked out perfectly. It was just beautiful to hear you read, and I love the combination of the essays and poetry. I already did, but it works also hearing them read. That was lovely. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Unmute yourself and just jump in.
Questions, comments? Yeah. I feel like I've talked forever. God.
You did
Um,
not. You did perfectly timed out. I'm looking back through the chat section to make sure I didn't miss a question. You will see when I send this to you how much resonated with people.
Oh,
It was nice to hear that bonus poem. I hope that's one that you sent to the anthology that
Hilda.
Hilda was.
Yes.
yeah, I wanted to thank you
Hilda's
for
got it.
reading
I thought
that.
I'd read. Thank
It's
you, Hilda.
Thank you for saying that wonderful poem. Of course, we were extremely affected by the flood here in Sugar
Oh,
Grove, North Carolina, and Yancey County. So thank you so much.
When is that
well, thank
anthology going to
you.
be out, Hilda?
Um, I mean, it's with the publisher. They're laying it out now. So I'm hoping mid-September.
That's
And
awesome.
and I should really be working on readings right now, but
Well, you know
uh,
you got one here. We'll
great.
have
Thank
Pat
you so
back to do
much.
it.
And all the proceeds, of course, will go to the Helene
Yeah.
flood fund relief. So thank you.
Awesome. Just a reminder, if you wanted a signed copy of Pat's book that you just heard her read from, because I did not drown, I'm putting it in the chat section again to go to her website, and you can reach out to her if you want a signed copy, or you can go directly to Main Street Rag for a copy from the publisher. I'm so glad that you didn't, these were very brave pieces and very vulnerable, very much like
Yeah.
you are opening up your world in essence. And one of the things that struck me as I read was how often the word friend or friendship came up in the manuscript. And I felt like you very much let the reader be part of your journey, be intimately connected to you by your vulnerability. And I just wanted to say, how was that writing? And when you sent it out, what were the thoughts or feelings that went into that?
Writing it, I really wasn't thinking about publishing it when I was writing it. As I said, to me, it was like going to the gym to develop muscle. It was developing my prose muscle. So I could write this memoir that I may or may not send out. That's just about that's even more scary. But then when I sent it out, I mean, if Scott hadn't said, if you have something you want published, you want me to look at, you better send it sooner rather than later. I probably would have just said, just go on, stay in your little pile. But then I sent it out, and my only thought was, well, let's just run this one up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes. And when he did, that was when I suddenly began to think, well, maybe I don't really want to publish this. Robin was a big help in being just an incredible reader, editor who said she thought it was worth sending out. And I was just scared to death after he said, okay, I'll take it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
scary for me. I've spent most of my life writing other people's stories.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's very different.
poems are poems. They don't, as I tell everybody, they aren't my autobiography. But this was just like walking around naked in Times Square or something, or Burnsville, where everybody knows me.
I've done that. I live in New York and I used to get drunk a lot.
Cindy, we're going to have to encourage you to write some of that. But Cindy, you wrote something about how inspiring Pat's work was with the vulnerability. And I feel like that's part of why this collection connected so deeply with me, is that the risks taken with the writing from such a clear space of saying, this is who I am, this is what I think about, this is how I feel. It also bridges into what it is to be out there humaning. And for me, I really enjoyed that risk that you took. I connected to it. Cindy, yeah, what did could you talk about what you wrote?
What jumped out at me was the word silence came up a lot. And well, I love the line, there's healing in the telling, because that's what she's doing. And that's what we all do when we write our stories. We try to heal ourselves, our broken pieces. And just that connected with me, and silence, just being still and letting whatever feelings happen. It's beautiful, beautiful work, Pat.
Thank you.
Paul just said he has to leave for dinner, but he said, I'm looking forward to reading this good book. The essays are very complimentary to the poetry. And I think that that's very true. It was almost like it condensed it, but also said things differently than the essay. Even though it complemented, there were interesting ways that those two work together, the mixed genre.
It's
For
almost
me.
like Haibun, where there's some discussion and then a little haiku at the end that kind of summarizes it or gives you a feeling from it.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good way to look at it, Glenn. And I did want to talk about process, Pat, because I don't think this is something you and I had talked about. But
No.
what came first? You know, when you were writing the essays, did you consciously, because Glenn really focused this for me, did you think about writing a poem, or did you already have some of the poems?
Well, I had some of the poems as it really kind of turned out to be a new and selected collection of poetry.
Yeah.
There's new poems in here. There's some older poems that have been in my other collections. I wrote the prose pieces first. And as I said, I really wasn't thinking about publishing them, and they were written over a period of time. And then I started thinking, you know, what could I do with this? Maybe I could put them together. And when Scott said, do you have anything? Well, no, I'd put them together before then. I looked at them and I thought, well, do I have poems that can be in conversation with these? I know they're really short and I don't like to waste people's time in the writing. So maybe I can come up with a poem that will kind of be in conversation with the prose piece. So I started looking through my poems and came up with some. And then I found a couple of poems that I can't remember which ones now that really prompted me to write another little essay, thinking, um, well, this is a poem that will be in conversation with whatever I write about this. It was a different process. And then I got the whole thing finished. Somewhere along the line early, Robin had suggested I needed a preface or a prologue thing. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess I really do, because I need to know for myself what I'm doing, or somewhat what I'm doing. So I went back and I wrote the preface, and also because I had the book title way before Helene came through these mountains. And when Scott said he wanted to publish it the end of last summer, I said, fine. And then he wanted to bring it out and start publicizing it in end of October. And I said, there is no way I'm putting up a book with that title. I'll have to change the title given where I live, and
Yeah.
that so many people I know are from this area. And that's just not right. Don't do it then. So I was still a little concerned that people would think I was trying to address, Helene, which to me is just way too big to even wrap my head around still. I can only bite it off in little pieces.
I think that's you know, that makes sense to me. The answer that you gave kind of dovetails with a question that Elaine had. Thanks, Elaine. Do you want to just ask directly with Pat? Because I like what you're bringing, and that kind of dovetails with what we've just been talking about.
Yes, yes, as you were talking, Pat, you were kind of answering my question. But since you hadn't really written these poems and essays to publish in a book, but the opportunity, I mean, in one book, but the opportunity arose. And then, of course, that means you have to comb back through them. You have to decide on where, placement, what comes in what order. You talked about that some as you were reading, like this follows that, or this comes before that. And I just wondered if you had more insights about individual pieces or about your writing in general in this period, or maybe some of your readers pointed out things to you and you became aware of what you were doing at a different level when you were putting the book together.
Well, I think that's true. At a different level, I did become more aware of what I was doing. To me, I enjoy putting together a book of poetry because it's like a puzzle. And I like puzzles. It's like a puzzle to solve, and looking for a narrative arc, an emotional arc. And I was more in this looking for an emotional arc because the essays are so narrative that I wanted a different way of putting them together so that they didn't feel like there's this and then there's this and then this happens. But I also wanted some kind of progression in a way that they fit together. And as I hoped they would talk with the poems and the poems would be in conversation with them, that they would kind of talk with each other, that one would lead to the next and then the next. Does
Oh,
that
I'm
answer your
grateful.
question? Yeah, writing prose was really different. I mean, writing newspaper stories and testimony for legislative committees and publicity releases is just a whole different animal. So I took some workshops on writing essays, and I read a lot of books on writing essays, and I learned all of this that I'm supposed to do, and then I didn't do a lot of it, or I broke a lot of the rules. So people say, "What's your book about?" And I am really kind of embarrassed to say I have no idea. Really, I mean, read it and tell me. But I think it's a snapshot of one woman's life at a particular period of history. If I had to say what it's about, Katrina.
Yeah, I'd say it's about resilience and love and work. Inner work.
It seems almost quaint these days. I mean,
No.
I mean, nice.
Oh, but that ultimately, I mean, I'm gonna kind of add on to what Katrina's saying. The resilience. No, that's not quaint. I mean, survival stories are so important now, particularly when it feels like so much is insurmountable. And I think that's why I find it comforting that you were vulnerable about talking about experiences, because it's, to me, again, about how how one person humans, and how do I relate to that story? What do I learn from the things? And I wanted to go to Katrina. I'm fairly certain that, I mean, you know Pat very well. If you had run across these essays, I think you would have thought of her. I think it's so much true to her.
Yeah, I will say, having known Pat for years and having heard her read, and Pat is a fabulous reader, as you all just heard, there is a thread that links all of her work, whether it's the playwriting, the poetry, and the link, you've already mentioned it, it's vulnerability, the willingness to be vulnerable. And that's how she connects with us.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or things you wanted to say? Because I'm more than happy to leave it. Yeah, jump in, Karen.
Pat, I just wanted to say, and I'm not very far into this because I keep rereading what I've read because it's an amazing work. I just wanted to thank you for the intimacy that you have given us in this book. It is so moving, and I'm kind of studying it as I'm reading it because it's really incredible. It's having the narrative first, and then it's like there's layers, and it's such a delight as a reader to move through it and hear the story. And then it's like I get this underlying, it just exquisitely personal, emotional, moving layer. It's just the intimacy. It's like nobody can read this without feeling it deeply. And I just thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's such a gift. It is such a gift.
Thank you.
I am stealing your phrase, exquisitely personal. When we do this again,
Yeah.
Pat, I'm using that phrase.
Well, thank you. When I taught, I told my students, don't be afraid to be of the personal, that the personal is universal. And the example that I always used was the Diary of Anne Frank, which was set in an extraordinary time, but it's still the diary of a teenage girl. I mean, who in the world would have thought that the diary of a teenage girl? So I said, just, it doesn't matter that you're living what you think is an ordinary life. I'm living what I think is a pretty ordinary life. Times just got a lot more extraordinary today, but I think our stories really, we have so much more in common.
Mm.
And we can connect on those levels. I found myself deeply connected to Elaine's character in her novel, Dancing Woman, which is wonderful. If you haven't read it, read it. But there's more that connects us. We just don't talk about it a lot. And a lot of the things I wrote, I don't talk about. But then I decided to publish this and kind of wanted to go like, here, take the book, just read it, and I'll be off on my island somewhere.
Well, it feels like that. It really feels like you have crafted this gift and you've said, well, here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It really is. It's amazing. It just feels like so much deep truth, and just the sharingness of it is just, it's wonderful. Just thank you.
I think great goodness might want to
Yeah.
borrow
Oh, yeah.
Pat
Yeah. Yeah.
for an interview.
Yeah.
Regina, you talked about loving the hybrid concept. Yeah, I think it's very effective, and I like how Glenn described it. I think that is kind of, and the dialogue, you talk a lot, Pat, about they're in conversation with one another, the essays and the poems. That's another good way to put this. The experience, I feel like the reader is in conversation with the piece as you're reading. And that's probably what you're touching on, Karen, is that sense
Yeah.
of intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not just the telling that's the healing, it's the being heard,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And that's really what Pat's poem, that final poem that's going to come out in the collection that Hilda has edited. It's when somebody starts to speak, even if you've heard the story, to stop what you're doing and to listen. That's about presence. And all of us as human beings, in the telling, there is hopefully someone deeply listening.
Yeah. Can I speak? Can I say
I love
something?
it. Yes,
Yes.
please.
So I've just figured out how to unmute myself, so I apologize. So Pat, it's just been such an honor for me to have helped you with this book, and hearing your voice tonight. Read the essays brings yet another dimension to the book, the fabulous dimension. And I was struck again how soft your eye is, a book so full of eyes. And I know as writers, we always like I, as we're working through a first person narrative, but that becomes so soft that it's really an invitation outward as well as that journey inward. And again, it just impressed me so very much to hear that soft eye. And it's soft, it explores, but there's something very resolute that we come back to. And it's a fabulous and odd combination, very, very unique. And reading it, there's no effort in reading this book. It's just amazing. And I remember thinking it reminded me a little bit of some of Donald Hall's essays, where he invites you into a landscape and you're just there with him. The eye is so soft, it disappears in the thoughts that he, you know, leads us to. And we just are immersed in that world. And that's what happened to me. And I reread the book in its published version, and I felt the same sort of very, very deep connection with the book. So thank you so very much. And it was wonderful to hear your voice adding that dimension. So I totally love this book. And I think these essays really contribute to what we really need to hear today. It's a voice that I think really resonates. And I just hope that you have a lot of good publicity to get this book out there, so that others can have that experience and the book will be recognized. It's, so difficult to write a book. It's difficult to get the darn thing published. And then it's out in the world. And, we just want it to have a life. And that's what I hope for the book, that it really has a full, lovely life, the life that it deserves, because it's really a wonderful book.
Thank you so much, Robin. It was wonderful working with you on this. And
Well, ditto.
we could do
I'm
this
glad
all
you figured out how to
night.
unmute. I'm really glad you figured out how to unmute. I have to tell you, speaking of the soft eye,
Yes,
it's lovely. And that's something I think I would aspire to, and that does really nail how these pieces move through, even though they're first person narrative.
exactly.
You don't hear this loud I saying, see me. It's kind of quiet, and that's lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
It's lovely.
No. Good.
Well, I feel like this is a good place to say thank you all, and thank you, Pat. We're going to move to open mic. If you have more questions, reach out to Pat or come to another reading with Pat. I have a few names written down for open mic. If you decide in the course of open mic that you'd like to read, just send me a message in the chat section and I'll be mindful to look at it. I have Regina first. Hey, Jenny.
I knew I shouldn't have put my name first. Okay, so the poem that I'm going to share with you today was actually written today. It might have been written in a little bit of anger. Just a forewarning. Also, I'm going to go on and say I love all of you, and so just hold that as I read this. Okay. This is entitled "The South Again." I'm thinking that maybe in order for the South to rise again, it has to die again. To self, I mean, that we might stand on a holier ground. It has already begun the march. It has put on clothes of comfortable hate to find a target, lie in wait, feel like there is only one same kind or type that can truly make this land great. Yet the day will soon come when the South finds that it too lives in the crosshairs of those who elate and berate and care nothing of grease marks smeared under uncleared eyes, or homemade trailers hitched to trucks, or Confederate battle flags waving under blue skies while dancing around altars, monuments, hanging trees, ready to bring would-be progress to its knees, all while singing patriot songs that celebrate selfishly constructed gods and some misshapen liberty. Somehow this South has risen again. Maybe it never left, filled with self-idolatry disguised as faith, lighting fires to celebrate the displaced glory and lack of shame in a land gerrymandered in insanity's name. As people are snatched and the land disintegrates, and the corn, peanuts, tomatoes, cucumbers, sugarcane dries and withers in the just past lush fields that my ancestors once tamed. Yeah, maybe the South has to rise again, break itself all the way down, die again, that it might perchance sleep and open its eyes again, learn new lessons, see its elders and children alive again, where they can grow healthy and strong, love others, and really have a happier, freer new life, not again, but fully and sweetly, perhaps for the very first time.
Oh God, Regina. I heard the anger, but I mean the sorrow, gosh, and the hope for something different. Very powerful. Needed to hear it. I'm glad it was the first one. Thank you for writing it. Glenn, I have you written down next.
Okay.
Oh, there you
Yeah, I was going to read something new, but after hearing Pat and what she's talking about, I'm going to read something that was published in Redheaded Stepchild 13 years ago. And actually, I've used when I teach economics classes, talking about importance of trust in making an economy run. So this poem is called In Men We Trust, with an epigraph, a government of laws and not of men, John Adams. Every day I trust that strangers approaching on the sidewalk will walk past and not attack. Trust that drivers will stop at the red light as I pass through on green. I trust that the waitress has not spit on my pizza, that the bridge's steel girders aren't rusted and flaking away like dandruff. I trust that the man reaching into his pocket is not reaching for a gun, that nearby strangers who might carry concealed guns have the same trust. I trust that my lover is not cheating, that my employer trusts me to continue in my job. Friends trust that gluten-free noodles are what they claim to be. Trust that I remembered not to add flour to the gravy. I trust my neighbor to be careful with the ash from her cigarette as she smokes on the deck. I trust that flaws in the jet's thin metal skin are within tolerance, that the gaps between atoms hold against stresses at 40,000 feet will not rip open and hurl me to the ground. And it seems, Mr. Adams, I have no recourse but to trust the human flaws of senators, governors, and presidents, that they lie within tolerance of gaps in the law.
Damn, that poem still holds the heavy weight. I remember when you sent it to us and I loved it then, and it was amazing to hear it again. The repetition, I trust. Check the chat section, Glenn. We're a pretty chatty group, and I don't want you to miss comments on your poem. Karen, I have you next.
All right. Well, this is a poem written in a response to poetry because that's where I go when things go crazy. Crazier, just crazy. Okay. This is in response to a poem, Dear Diary, in Diane Gilliam Fisher's book, Kettle Bottom, which I got to tell y'all, that book is, woo! After you finish reading Pat's book, put this on your buy list. It's rocking the world. It's really beautiful. Anyway, this is in response to her Dear Diary poem. Dear, this swelling in my throat is burning my cheeks. I am moved to expanding the swell of my heart by your words, which I have only heard in my voice and my soul. Words, your words, I have seen on the page, and in the ache of my knowing the black and the blue of their bruising truths. Dear diary, you wrote, not knowing that any soul other than yours would receive your words, receive and covet, nestle into home. I am homing in with you.
I love that, Karen. That is
Okay.
lovely.
Poems, they can give you solace.
Yeah, I wrote down kettle bottom because I'm like, if Karen's being motivated, I wanna read that too.
It's a tough read. It's all persona poems, written in the voices of the people in West Virginia in the 1920s during the terrible the coal mine wars where they had the hired guns come in. It's intense, but exquisitely beautiful at the same time. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Karen. I always learn something with your poems too. Especially when you turn to phrases. I'm like, I want to write that down. I've been writing a lot of notes. I'm coming to you, Christy. I'm going to go ahead and pause the record. And I have Shamala next.
That was awesome, Christy. Not just the poem, but that you've gotten rid of her. So happy for you. This is called Dizzy at the Top of California, and it's a prose poem with that new ink smell. How do redwood trees get those giant vertical folds in their trunks? Or am I mistaken? And these aren't redwoods yet, but still the giant firs. I do recognize the large antlered creatures. Moose, I know. Also, it says so on the sign at the park's entrance, some warning to behave appropriately around them. There is a smell compounded of packed, twisting fog, dying leaves, lingering charred aftermath of fire. There's blackened bits of ground, too, twisted, charcoaled tree limbs, dead space that hasn't regenerated yet. Musk of moose overlays all. Not a peaceful smell. I'm not so peaceful myself, both entranced and bewildered, here at the top of California where Highway 101 has somehow morphed into a single lane in each direction rural road with actual stoplights on it, and the trees brush the sky in a green cathedral that eats all other light and all thought but those of green, growing, living, dying, eating. There's insect holes in the trees. The moose are grazing. I am beyond myself at the sight of them, a wonder to my city eyes, never mind my tropical blood from halfway around the world. But I can't help feeling out of place. What do they see when they look at me? I cannot see myself for the folds of time in my past, between one place and another, one life and another, one age and another, one bit of my bark and another. I lay my hand on a tree, breathing it in, and then worry about ticks. It's cold. The smells are intoxicating, the cold biting. I wonder prosaically where the restrooms are. The last time we stopped, they were by the side of the road in a tiny area cut out of the surrounding forest, with a sign that said, "Beware of the bears," but not to do if we met one. And the stall doors didn't look bear-proofed, so we punted. Now I'm dizzy with cold and crossing my legs while trying to hike while swiveling my neck to watch the moose in case of what I do not know. The moose warning sign didn't have instructions either. Most things don't seem to. Sign after sign, fold after fold, no instructions, only the road continuing, time passing, narrowing. The green day is darkening. It's either coming on for night or a storm. I realize I'm worried out of my mind and yet so exhilarated I can scarcely stand it.
Oh, Shamala, thank you. Check the chat section. I enjoyed that sense of feeling like I'm very much observing and in direct dialogue with nature. That was lovely. I have Cindy, then Lynn, then Bob.
Okay. This is my two-line silly anti July 4th, I guess, poem. It's called I wrote it this week. With apologies to Rene Magritte. So you have to know his famous work of art. But it's only two lines. This poem is not about the passage of the big, ugly, cruel, and terrifying bill. It's about a pipe.
Damn.
The,
Oh, Cindy, that is awesome. You know, you have so much fun with I don't know how you do it, but how like a small container can just go.
You know why? Because Bob and I are members of a group called Brevitas, and we have to submit short poems. Now, Bob writes short poems, very good ones, and I try to somehow before we have to submit them, I always come up with like a two-liner, and I like them.
Awesome.
I'm always an Ogden Nash fan, so maybe that's
Yeah,
why.
I can benefit from some brevity at times. Yeah. Yeah. And also check the chat section and the title was awesome. Lynn,
Thank you. Moonflower. My eager eyes seek ghostly light. Through my nose I breathe notes of vanilla, jasmine, perhaps some honeysuckle, ruffled raw silk from ivory moonflowers. So much mystery in this mannequin of a bloom glowing in the moonlight. Man in the moon swooning between stars. A design class challenge. Titania's gown for Midsummer's Night Dream. I copied Frances Danby's Fairies. Design on stage in mind's eye. She was a moonflower, plucked from the sky. She performed unscathed by tarnished thoughts, caught by the coin of romance of my unfurnished mind. And like the play, there was adoration, consternation, and three pixies all tucked in a morning glory, new beginnings underpinning the undying blossom.
That is gorgeous. There's something very circular or movement in your poem too that I enjoyed, and I think it was the language. We need to sit with that for a moment. And funny enough, I just found a moonflower in one of my gardens, so I'm super excited. Thank you. And our final reader is Bob.
Okay, this is something new. The night plays with the night, with the way it touches the children before they are ready. Inside it, the animals grow larger and more fierce. Inside it, even gentle words become a threat.
Wow. Again, brevity and the power.
Thank you.
Gentle words become a threat. Thank you. Well, this is, again, our open mic has outdone themselves. Make sure y'all check the chat section. I'll give a minute because I don't want people to miss. And that last line, you can see how well it hit, Bob, because all of us are saying the same thing. I love our chat section. So if you didn't check after your poem, check now before we sign off. Pat, again, thank you for letting us celebrate. Amazing book. It was good to see everybody. Hard day. I think it was good to be in y'all's good company. Keep writing. Again, I love silence, but like Pat was talking about, that silence is, as we used to say during the AIDS epidemic, silence equals death.
Yeah.
Oftentimes not our own. And that's just as important to speak out. Be well, be safe. Bye, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you all for
Thank you,
coming.
everyone.
Great to see you and hear you.
Wait. Are you
Yeah.
there? No, don't hang, don't.
Okay.
I just found your website. This is Cindy B. I have my hand up.
Yeah.
I stumbled onto this reading in my Facebook feed tonight. And do you have a website that I can go to keep up with you guys? It was beautiful.
Oh, Cindy, I am so glad that you were here and how awesome that you just ran across it. I am
Yeah.
notoriously bad at making it easy to find our weekly things. What you can do is if you just put book launch or send me a message, I'll put my email address.
Okay.
And I will make sure that I friend you on Facebook. And that's usually how I do it is I just send an invitation
Okay.
weekly to what we have going on. And we
All
are,
right.
so it's just Malika.Albrecht@gmail if you just copy that and paste. But I'm so glad you came and how awesome is that?
Well, sometimes those terrible algorithms actually have a good function because I'm also a writer and I love these online poetry, readings. I'm trying to jot down your email here real quick while I talk to you. And I actually was the name is the Redheaded Stepchild.
Yes. Oh, okay. So that resonated with you. Well, I'm literally a was former redheaded stepchild.
And I just thought that was the greatest name. So, I'm sitting here and I had my dinner and I had my groceries delivered and I was kind of bored and I thought, oh, I'll check this out and
You're
see,
meant to be here.
and everyone was really, really amazing. I just every poem was like, wow.
And
So yes,
Cindy, I have to.
Great host.
Yeah, so I'll send you an email. My name is Cindy Brown. My Facebook moniker is Lady Avalon Art. So
Okay.
you'll
I will
find
try to find you
and
and definitely send me an email and we will keep you in the loop. But I have to tell you, our open mics are like this, and you are welcome to
They
read
happen
anytime
every
you would
week?
like to.
They happen
Pretty much every week.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to
We've been-
read.
I would love for you to do it. Our first was March 13th in 2020.
Yes, and I know so many of these cropped up during that time period and have just marched on and really, you know, the readings really facilitate my writing because everybody's just, so creative. It's just wonderful, really. Just really was a great way to end the evening today. So thank you all so much.
Well, I'm glad you spoke up. All right, guys. I look forward to keeping in touch, Cindy.
Okay, I will send you an email sometime either late tonight or in the morning. How do you say your name? Malika?
Malika.
Malika. Okay, Malika. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See, Pat, look at how you're making people feel comfortable. Again, friendship,
Oh, I'm glad.
community.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? Oh, I
It's
didn't.
what saves our lives every day.
The reading with you at Weymouth is the 20th of August.
Yes. So August 20th, we're going to be
Yeah.
in person.
In person.
Together.
Malika.
And it's going to be fun. We're going to do kind of an interview style. This was a good, but now I have quotes from everybody, and I've stolen exquisitely personal from Karen. I'm so proud of myself for my thieving ways. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Malika. Thank you all for coming.
It's
It's great. Love the open mic. God, some wonderful poetry tonight. Thank you.